Rwanda deportation plan is under scrutiny in the House of Lords this afternoon. In fact, in about 10 minutes' time, the first of a lengthy series of debates kicks off. Meanwhile, it's been revealed that the Home Office spends around 36 million quid on private boats to help the border force pick up migrants in the Channel. The vessels are being leased on a temporary basis because of a 2-year delay in its plans to replace the UK's current fleet of border force cutters. We've also learned that nearly 16,000 asylum seekers, including those who cross the Channel in small boats illegally, have been allowed to work in a single year. They've been working in occupations in which there are recognised staff shortages and are paid 80% of the going rate to do so. Even The Guardian are calling this slave labour. Well, let's speak now to our political editor, Chris Vobe, and I'm also joined in the studio. My great pleasure to have Sir John Redwood. But first to you, Chris. So, a lengthy debating process kicks off in about 10 minutes' time in the Lords. We spoke about this last week, led by Lord Goldsmith, who would like to table a series of amendments which basically could mean months and months of delay.
The beginning of trying to slow down the Rwanda plan is starting. The government says it wants to get these first flights off in May this year, in the spring. Today is all about trying to... it's the International Agreements Committee. You never heard of it, nor had I until I came on the show. Essentially, it's a committee in the Lords which wants the government to delay ratifying the treaty with Rwanda until it is actually safe, until the things we know that will take place to look after people flown there, deported there, that's happening, and that could delay it for months and months and months. I think this is a side issue to the main meat of the consideration of the Rwanda bill, which will be in about 10 days' time, and that's when it really will start. I've been talking to rebels who rebelled last week, some of the 11 or sources close to them. They think it'll be mauled in the Lords. It'll come back barely recognisable. It'll be up to the government's supporters and the government's MPs to change that bill and make it, put it back to the way it was last week, which, of course, some would say won't work anyway.
And it sounds like an unholy coalition of Labour, Lib Dems and One Nation Tories would do their very best to derail this and give Rishi a major headache. Let's talk about this 36 million quid being spent on private boats to back up border force.
That's less concerning, though, I think, because essentially...
Well, it is to taxpayers.
Yes, but they're doing it because they can't get a boat built on time. So essentially they're saying, we can't get the boat built, let's spend the money on chartering vessels. So the only boats they can stop are the boats they can't build in time? Well, in a sense, I just think that if they rather than say we're not going to do it at all, they are trying to do it with a chartered vessel. I mean, it's not working, Martin. We know the numbers, hundreds arriving last week.
Yeah, and at the weekend, this astonishing revelation that 16,000 of those who arrived, some of whom would have arrived illegally, have been granted work visas in the care sector, in construction, in agriculture. A lot of people saying this is just a red carpet being rolled out to people smugglers.
The problem is it's the pull factor. So if you're in France looking at the UK, what you see there is if you arrive in the UK, you get put up in a hotel and you get work, albeit at 80% of the going rate. That is still a way to get established in this country illegally. And that's the problem, I think, for a lot of people on the right of this debate. They think, why on earth are we allowing this to happen? Put people up in hotels or some again on the bivvy barge, not many. How can this be right?
OK, Chris, stick around. Let's turn to Sir John Redwood now, if I could. Sir John, thank you for coming to the studio. Always a pleasure. A lot of conversation around illegal immigration, but of course you've been focused, rightly so, for a long time on the thorny topic of legal migration, which of course is a far greater topic and far costlier to the taxpayer.
Well, indeed. I mean, over 700,000 compared with 30,000 of illegals, all invited in, all on this cheap labour model, and I'm very much against it. I think we should say that we want higher wages, higher productivity in the United Kingdom. We need to offer training and support and better wages to all the people who are already here, who are of working age, who are not working. The government has some ideas on that. And I think it's quite wrong to let employers bring people in on discount wages to depress the wage level that we see here. And they say it's cheap labour, but it isn't cheap for the taxpayer. And this is the big point I've been making in the debate. The EU tried to work out how much a migrant would cost an EU country in terms of the capital cost of providing a flat and the capital cost for school places and health provision, and then the early years public service costs. They said €250,000 in 2016. I've been trying to get the government to either stack up my £250,000 or come up with their own figure. But when you realise it's that amount of money, no wonder we're very short on public spending. And I see it in my own area where we've had to put in 3 new primary schools to cope with all the extra people coming to our part of the world. There has to be some limit on the numbers.
Chris?
Why has your government allowed it to happen? Tens of thousands was a target back in 2010, and now it's, as you say, it's 700,000 plus legally arriving here net.
Well, they shouldn't, and I'm very pleased the Prime Minister now said he wants to reverse that, and he's come up with proposals to take 300,000 off, but when you're starting from 700, that isn't enough. Because we're still nowhere near where we were in 2019. And I think the reason it happened, as you know, Chris, is that everybody had a good case. You know, we need some extra care workers, we need some extra farm workers, we need some extra technology workers. But they shouldn't bring in so many. And if these are temporary shortages, you solve the shortage. They did a very good job on drivers. We were very short of drivers because of the big move to online deliveries over COVID and all the rest of it. And they went off and they put in the extra training places. They got the extra licenses granted. They put the wages up. And a lot of that shortage went away. That's what they should be doing in the care sector. That's what they should be doing in the farm sector. Higher productivity, higher wages, and spend the public money on helping people do the investment in Britain. Don't spend so much public money on trying to backfill the need for all these extra provisions.
But isn't the problem now the care sector, agriculture, construction, hospitality, and many other sectors, they're addicted to cheap labour. They've had a tap of it for so long. Even The Guardian on today's front page is saying it's slave labour to get care workers and 80% of wages. Of course it is. You've got the Guardian agreeing with people like yourselves that this is wrong, but nobody seems to have an idea how to fix it. The government could just switch off those visa numbers overnight, though, couldn't you?
Well, of course they could, and I'm urging them to do something more than that. I think there is huge public support from Labour as well as Conservative voters for the idea of a higher wage, higher productivity model. Being paid more for doing more because you've got technology and support and better systems and so forth. And we could make huge breakthroughs. Indeed, in the public services, we've had a shocking 7.5% productivity collapse, according to the official figures, since 2019. And we need that back. That's 30 billion or more extra payments to achieve the same amount. We can't go on like that. So they must put all their efforts, the government, into productivity and into supporting it with investment. And then they'll get a lot of savings because they won't need so many new school places and so many extra subsidised homes to accept in 700,000. I mean, the way I put it is that if you're going to carry on at 700,000, you need to build 3 cities the size of Southampton every year. And you don't just have to build the flats, you've got to build the shops and the utilities
the schools, the roads,
and everything.